Welcome. In this session, we will start with the 2013 paper 1 section B. We have already covered section A. Now section B basically focused on the human and economics geography section, but for 2013 most of the questions, I would say many of those were related to areas of world geography. So you should be very well versed with those areas. Now the first question talks about determinism with the views given by Sample. So as we know, she was one of the major supporters of determinism. She worked along with Huntington and Taylor and was influenced solely by Darwin and Ratzel. Now she laid down 4 different ways. The first was the direct physical aspects that she explained, which talked about the climate, the latitude and the altitude of a region. Then she talked about the psychical characters, which was art, culture, language and so on. Then she explained the social and economic development. So social and economic factors were considered under this section. And finally, the movement of people, which talked about the routes, the movements and the barriers. So movement of people. So these were the 4 areas under which she tried to explain the ideas of determinism. Now next was the role of Venezuela in production and export of oil. If we talk about the world map, you have these are the major areas which are marked here. You can see are the major areas of oil production and export of oil. Now Venezuela, the leader of Venezuela, Maduro Maros, who was one of the founder members of OPEC and hence had a strong influence in the role of oil development and oil export in Venezuela. It is one of the largest exporters of oil and largest proven oil reserves as per 2012 estimates. It's the 8th largest exporter in the world. It's again a founder member, as I said, for OPEC, the Organization for Petroleum Export, and in 2008 it was 10th highest in the world in terms of production. Now there are some basic ideas that we need to know about Venezuela. The petroleum was discovered, the oil was discovered on the surface by the local indigenous tribe and it was known as Menes. Now this material oozed out from the soil and the local people there, the indigenous tribes, used this material for medical purposes, for illumination and so on. Then there was a Spanish advent in the region and the people from Spain tried to export this mainly for the use in ships and various industries, and then started the development of oil reserves and the oil development in the region. As a result, the region faced a kind of Dutch disease. Dutch disease is a term used to explain when there is a sudden rise in one of the commodities in a region that would lead to overdue emphasis on one specific particular item, and in turn it would affect the export of other manufacturing units and the currency in that region would get strengthened. So that led to Dutch disease, and this happened twice and thrice in Venezuela. Again in 1973 there was an oil embargo that happened. So these are some of the I would say path-breaking developments in the oil development or the oil reserves in Venezuela. So when there is a question on this, you must explain all of these. Next is Mishra's theoretical stages of rural-urban processes. Now Mishra derived his ideas from Hermansen, and his ideas from Hermansen were basically focused on 2 basic themes: the forward linkages and backward linkages. When he explained forward linkages, he talked about the market areas and the market linkages. When he talked about backward linkages, he mainly focused on the raw material source. So based on that, he tried to understand 3 basic ideas. One was the central place, the growth centers or the growth poles, and the spatial diffusion. So growth poles talked about the localization and the growth of an industry. Central place talked about exactly what is the localization of the industry, and spatial diffusion talked about the spread of the industrial development. Based on these 3 ideas which he derived from various theories, he said there could be 5 different levels at which we could understand. He said the highest level was a growth point, which is at a national level. Then you have the growth centers, which are regional. Below the regional you have sub-regional level, which is growth point. Then you have the service center, and finally the central villages. So this is a kind of hierarchy that could be seen in the rural-urban processes as explained by Mishra. Now next question is, countries most affected in case of shutdown of nuclear power. Now when we talk about nuclear power, there are 31 nations in the world that mainly work around the nuclear development and use nuclear energy as power. Of these 31 nations, most prominently the major continents are Europe, North America, Asia and South Asia region. However, France is the country that uses nuclear power solely for electricity. Then you have various groups of countries which have various views. Now of the 30 countries that we talk about, France, Hungary, Slovakia and Ukraine use it mainly for electricity purposes. Belarus, Iran, Jordan, Turkey, UAE and Vietnam are against the use of nuclear power energy, and India, China and South Korea are developing and have kind of rapid plans for expansion of nuclear energy. However, after the 2013 the Fukushima disaster that happened, 2016 Lithuania shut down all its nuclear power plants. Then after Lithuania you have Italy, which also closed its major power stations for the fear of spread of nuclear disaster. Then you have Belgium, Germany, Spain and Switzerland, which are slowly and gradually moving away from the nuclear power ideas, and you have other countries which are supporting the same idea and which have intentions to support it. So these are the regions which would be affected. On the world map you could see the various regions which are using nuclear power and which have ideas of using, and these are the regions which have no interference or no use of nuclear power. The next question is relevance of heartland theory in contemporary world. Now we have already talked about the heartland theory when we talked about in this video. So the idea of heartland theory is well explained here. Now one who rules the world, one who rules East Europe rules the world island, and one who rules the world island rules the world, was the basic idea that was propounded under this theory. And initially what happened was, this heartland and rimland region was the region of maximum influence. However, during and after World War II, it was proved that United States became one of the dominant superpowers of the world, and this region was laid off behind. However, with the recent emerging trends, you have China and India which are emerging as superpowers. So again the rimland region is gaining power, and there is territorial expansion that is taking place here. So you have increased relevance in the recent world for the heartland theory that could be explained. However, there are numerous criticisms which this theory is facing based on the fact that the current international order does not allow countries to have to have ideas related to colonialism and imperialism, which were very common prior to 1945. So colonialism and imperialism are two basic drawbacks that were faced under this ideas when we talk about its relevance in contemporary days. So these are some topics that you must explain under this theory. Now next is, what is gyeretics and what are the problems associated with gyretic population. So the word itself means elderly population. So what we have to explain is how the elderly population should be dealt with. So the basic things you must touch around is the health issues, the dependency ratio and the population pyramid. If we talk about India itself, we had 20 million in 1951, which increased to 57 million in 91 and are projected to rise to 324 million by 2050. That shows an enormous burden on the Indian youth and a higher dependency ratio that would be created by 2050. This shows that you must have certain measures that you must fulfill in order to cope out this situation. Now, major issues related with the old age population are related to mental morbidities. So you have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, which are common in form of mental morbidities. Then you have decreased immunity, increase or rise in the communicable diseases at elderly age. However, there have been recent programs that have been released, like National Policy on Older Persons. You have National Old Age Pension Program and Annapurna Program. So these are some of the programs you must highlight, along with the recent statistics for those. Then you have some NGOs that are coming up, which is like HelpAge India. Also, you can work out or work around the specific examples or case studies, as you can mention the urban community dementia services that are highly active in the region of Cochin. So you can specifically mention out case studies and questions like these. Now the next question is, discuss the changing pattern of production and export of coffee in the world. Now as you can see, you have Africa that remained more or less constant. Then you have the proportion of Asia and Oceania has increased significantly. Central America more or less at the same pace, and then you have South America again more or less at the same percentage. So as we can see, highest amount of increase in the coffee production is seen in the region of Asia and Oceania, and the two countries that contribute maximum is India and Indonesia in terms of rise in the coffee production in these regions. However, there has been a substantial decrease after 1988 in the coffee production in Africa. That is mainly due to the aging of trees, the liberalization policies, and the structural changes that occurred in the region. However, it's important to note that coffee production after the Rio Earth Summit 1992, there was idea on sustainability, which talked about the economic, social and the environmental issues, which talked about price volatile nature and the volatile nature of the price. So these were all considered as a major factors that impact the coffee production and the export of coffee in the region. So you must mention all these and the developments in the last 50 years. The next question is the basic postulates of the central place model of Christaller. Now this is a direct question which you can refer in this video again. The next question is, urban solid waste management possesses a greatest challenge to the metropolitan planning. Now when we talk about solid waste management, you have generation, reduction, reuse, recycling, handling, collection, transfer, transport, transformation and disposal as the main elements of urban solid waste management system. Now I can easily classify the urban solid waste management into four basic categories. First is the hazardous management, the hazardous waste management. The next is the biomedical waste that is released from hospitals and other nursing homes. So those are the two primary categories. Then you have the municipal solid waste that is left out, and the batteries management and the management of the batteries and the e-waste that is released. So all these account for the solid waste. However, if we compare the urban and rural statistics, you have only 0.15 kg per person per day released in the rural areas. However, in urban areas it's greater than 1 per person per day per kg. So 1 kg per person per day. So you have a very high proportion of urban area which is contributing to the solid waste management, and hence solid waste management in urban areas is a major challenge. Now most of the waste that is released is decomposed, and you have the green techniques that are used to decompose the waste and recycle the waste. However, Dr. Burman in his report tried to explain some of the reasons. You have to prohibit street littering, organize waste collection system, there must be awareness programs, adequate community storage and color coded dustbins that should be provided. You should have segregation at the source itself, so plastics and glasses and the household waste should be segregated. So these are some of the major ideas that were propounded by Dr. Burman in his report. The next question here is, analyze the reasons for a comparatively poor development of fishing grounds in tropical waters. Now first of the most important reason here is the tropical areas are a region of sparse population. As a result, they do not have that much labor force which is required for the development of fishing industry, since fishing is a labor intensive industry. Again, the fishes that are found in the tropical areas are more bony, they are less fleshy, and many of them are poisonous. There is no single species that is found, so there is a kind of huge diversity in the species. Again, the oil content or the fat content is very high, as around 25%, up to 25% in case of sardines, which is not considered fit for human consumption. So these are rarely used. So these are some of the major reasons why there are opportunities for fishing in the tropical areas, but still the development is not at par, and there are no future prospects where we can see huge development or huge potential development of fishing industry in the tropical areas. Again, this area is not a region where you have the merging of cold currents and warm currents. The region where you have the merging of cold currents and warm currents are the best regions for the growth of the best fishing grounds of the world. And again, you do not have a kind of huge continental shelf in this region which provides a good thriving or breeding regions for the fishes. So these are some of the major drawbacks. The next is the parameters assessment and the spatial patterns of HDI. So human development index, as you can see here, the regions which are lightest in color have the highest per capita, the highest human development index. Now human development index is divided by 3 categories: the per capita income, the life expectancy, and the educational attainment. So that's again one of the general questions that you should be able to answer. Now this is a real interesting question. The question asks, urban geography is nothing but city in area and city as area. Elaborate. Now in this question, what you have to understand is you are working around city as area. That means I am talking about the internal morphology of the city. I am considering that city itself to be an area which is a prospect for growth. So when we talk about such a factor, we mainly focus on the sector theory, the role of central business districts, the multiple nuclear theory. So all these would be discussed under the idea of city as area. However, when I talk about city in area, that means it's mainly a kind of role based activity, or I could say a functional approach, where I can say in this area this city is predominant. When I say this city is predominant, there must be some reason behind it. If I say you have reasons where you have Rourkela, which is developed as an iron steel industry or an iron hub, you have the reasons behind it because you have availability of good water supply, you have quick availability of coal there. So these are some of the reasons which help develop the city itself. So that is city in an area. Because of the area, you have the development of the city that occurs. So we can explain within an area why that city has come up. So you have to explain the various growth theory. Again, the location as per the Christaller and Losch model is applicable here. You can also explain this by means of rank size rule and primate city. Again, as I said, you have the functional roles or the role of the city that is paramount in this case. So how does a city function in an area, or why this city has grown up in a particular area is important, and you need to explain that. So this was a very tricky question which most of the students were struck up with. The next question, analyze the causes for the change in the pattern of world trade. Now world trade is basically caused mainly and primarily due to specialization, and that specialization is fueled due to globalization. Now you have various regional blocs that promote the development of world trade. You have European Union, you have NAFTA, which are regions for trade creation. However, outside these blocs, if you go, you will see kind of diversions in the trade. Now economies, most of the economies are planning to move towards economic independence, so the energy independence. So that means you have a kind of independent economic structure that is predominant in most of the economic regions that you will see. Again, you have ideas of polarization and nationalism that are coming up. So if I say you have a campaign of Make in India, however or not, you might be using numerous Chinese products, but just after hearing this, you might at least look once before buying a product whether this is made in India or not. So that is a kind of polarization of nationalism that is developed over the time, and that has led to changes in the pattern of world trade. You have blanket bans that have taken place recently in India, and those blanket bans are again one of the causes which will lead to changes in the world trade patterns. Again, under this you could mention some of the recent examples or the impacts of Brexit, and you have the ISIS that you could mention in this question. So it is good if you substantiate questions like these with current information and contemporary knowledge. So with this we cover paper 1 for 2013. We will be covering paper 2 for 2013 in a separate session. You can subscribe to our channel for further updates. Have a good day ahead.